Ready? Hi, my name is Bradley Benton, and I did my research project on Sophocles and how the works he did influenced tragedy in the modern day. I also talked about the differences between Greek tragedy and modern tragedy. Tragedy, as a subset of theatrical performance, has existed since the beginning of ancient Greek theater. When we look at tragedy from ancient Greece, there has always been a main character that fits into one specific category. Oscar G. Brockett states in History of the Theater, 10th edition, that Sophocles placed increased emphasis on individual characters. The protagonists, noble but not faultless, are usually subjected to a terrible crisis that leads to suffering and self-understanding, including the perception of a higher-than-human law behind events. Sophocles emphasizes that most people lack wisdom, and he presents truth in collision with ignorance, delusion, and folly. Many scenes dramatize flaws or failure in thinking. Over the centuries, we've seen a slow shift from the Greek examples of tragedy. We lost the chorus along the way, and rarely do we see actors parading around the stage in masks. But this condition of tragic heroes remained popular, even in use as we look in more recent times. We see that Shakespeare also wrote many tragedies that focused on nobles and their downfalls, such as Romeo and Juliet, Hamlet, and Macbeth. Greek tragedy continues to be an influence in modern society because we have come into another age of knowledge, and these ancient tragedies consistently expose the fact that no matter how humans attempt to control the forces of nature, there always seems to be a higher power that does not bend to human wants, such as when Oedipus was forced to complete the prophecy no matter how hard he tried to resist. One reason why Sophocles, and the Greeks in general, wrote plays in this fashion is because of their fear or reverence of the gods. Sophocles accepted the gods of Greek religion in a spirit of unreflecting orthodoxy, and he contented himself with presenting human characters and human conflicts. If they wrote fictitious works in which men were unable to conquer the will of the gods, it would reinforce the social ideology that men were at the whim of the Olympians. Christian Dahl states in his article Tragedy and Theatricality in the Island that Aristotle's theory of tragedy has been disparaged for its universalist indifference to history and for its focus on the fall of great men instead of on social and political conflict. The tragedies that are written and shown in today's theater illustrate social change and the problems that arise from the conflicts surrounding those changes. Moving into the 20th century, we have tragedies like Tennessee Williams' A Streetcar Named Desire, or Arthur Miller's Death of a Salesman, which supports Dahl's point because the main characters are no longer of noble standing, nor do they always have a capacity for greatness in the way that Greek tragedies did. Alfred Carey Schlesinger states in his article, Can We Moderns Write Tragedy?, that if we concentrate on the human aspects, surely the Sophoclean tragedy of self-frustration or the Euripidean tragedy of social involvement is by no means impossible. We are able to look at these stories and find how the characters fall to their own destructive devices and social pressures. The idea that suffering results from human error has been around for millennia, and the idea that one can better themselves from their suffering is a very common opinion. Picking oneself up by their bootstraps, or rising from the ashes, are common phrases purely because society today expects one to better themselves by learning from their failures. Brian Dories states in his article, Healing the Invisible Wounds of War with Greek Tragedy, that ancient Greek tragedy was, and still is, a powerful tool to help people suffer openly and communally, mitigating the cumulative effects of prolonged trauma that can corrode an individual or state. Today, the vast and untapped potential for this type of theater to propagate healthy responses to stress is wholly underestimated. In performing Greek dramas, there is healing and hope, not in the plays, which are bloody and despairing, but in the people who come together to bear witness to them. In my opinion, It is no longer necessary to gather for these cathartic experiences. Due to the progression of society and the individualization of emotion, we have come to an age where there are people who dedicate their lives to helping others experience emotional growth and release. When Kenneth McKinnon states in his article, Greek Tragedy in Modern Times, while I never received the impression that the audience was moved to tears, I did feel that it was stimulated, curious, provoked, as well as reverential. He shows that there has been an increase across society in emotional maturity. The fact that people no longer need to attend these plays as a therapeutic exercise allows them to watch, enjoy, and mentally dissect the performance that they have come to see. Sophocles revolutionized ancient Greek theater because he introduced the idea of having a third actor on the stage, allowing him to create more complex plots and scenes. Brockett even goes so far to say that Sophocles is the most skillful of Greek dramaticists in mastery of dramatic structure because his Oedipus the King is often called the most perfect of Greek tragedies. The impact derives almost entirely from the force of the dramatic action himself. Ancient authorities also credit Sophocles with the invention of some type of scene paintings or other pictorial prop to establish locale or atmosphere. He also thought that he may have increased the size of the chorus from 12 to 15 members. Only 7 out of what is theorized to be a number over 120 works have survived into the modern day. Sophocles was incredibly prolific, seeing as his greatest rival, Euripides, wrote only 90 plays. This was no case of quantity over quality, however, because Sophocles is said to have won 24 contests, and he never earned below second place when he competed. It is undeniable how big of an influence Sophocles had on ancient Greek theater, and we still see how his influence changed theater even in modern day performances.